I think there is a misperception that trust exists until you break it. And in reality, it doesn't exist yet at the start in many situations. You have to build it. I think people can see through consultants who pretend to have all the answers before they know them.
Today's guest is Kathleen Dillon. She is the Executive Vice President and Managing Director at Herronpalmer, where she advises organizations on people strategy, helping leaders improve talent and overall business performance.
The more you build that trust, the more context you get about the complexities or political dynamics or whatever other dynamics might be involved in a situation. And then the more you can help, helping them avoid, as one of our clients once said, following shiny objects around or trends of the moment. You can't come out of the gate assuming everybody's on board and you've got a vote of confidence. You have to build and earn it quickly, but it's not there to be taken for granted.
How do you really get your clients to open up with you so that you do get the important information to be able to do what's right for them?
It's interesting that many of the things that make us good consultants are the things that...
Welcome to the Masters of Trust Building What Matters Most podcast. I'm Noelle Mykolenko, CEO of Trusted Advisor Associates. Today, I'm joined by Kathleen Dillon, Executive Vice President at Herronpalmer, a division of Brown & Brown Non-Medical Solutions. Kathleen brings a genuinely uncommon background to this work. She holds a PhD in English literature, spent years teaching at the university level, and found her way into the world of benefits and HR almost by accident, which, as you'll hear, turned out to be anything but. Over the course of a remarkable career, she's built a practice rooted in exactly the principles we explore on this show: deep listening, radical transparency with clients, and a relentless commitment to doing what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. What strikes me most about Kathleen and about Herronpalmer is that trust isn't a talking point for them. It's a practice. I am so glad to have her on the show. Kathleen, welcome.
Thank you, Noelle. I'm very happy to be here with you.
So just to get us started off, we've talked a lot in the past about the importance of client centricity for you at Herronpalmer. Can you share a little bit with us about what that means to you?
Absolutely. I think it's the central principle for us, right? If you think about the work that we do, we're in the business of helping the people who hire, train, retain, and help employees ensure a solid retirement, make sure that they get paid on time, right? Critical functions, make sure that they have help in staying healthy, getting healthy. All of that is mission critical. And so when you think about the many challenges that those stakeholders can confront, right, from looking for a great new value add solution to help deliver total rewards or HR programs to their employees, to fixing a solution that's already in place, right, but may not be working optimally or maybe not be working at all, right? So you have to be there for them in those times, and you have to be available when needed and bring expertise, bring ideas, bring the solutions that are going to help them. So it's all about really focusing on those client needs through each of our individual projects and conversations with clients.
Yeah, so you're working with clients who have a lot at stake, right? Because their clients are their employees. Tell us a little bit about what exactly Herronpalmer does and Brown & Brown Strategic Non-Medical Solutions to support your clients.
So Brown & Brown Strategic Non-Medical Solutions, which is a division of Brown & Brown in the retail and, in this case, specifically employee benefits space, is an expert assisting customers with needs across, as it sounds, non-medical benefits, so life, disability, leave, et cetera. And Herronpalmer in particular is a sourcing advisory and consulting firm in the HR, benefits, technology, and services space. So we help our customers similarly find solutions for essentially the delivery of HR and benefits programs. And, in working with our customers, we often need to stop and listen to situations, as I described before, that may be challenges, they may be opportunities that they have, and help with anything ranging from a strategic consultation, a conversation, bringing simple expertise on the market landscape for their consideration, to running much more complicated search and evaluation projects that help them select preferred partners for the needs that they have, to implementing those solutions, standing alongside them and the partners that they select to get those solutions stood up. So the projects can be very complex and sometimes they're long in duration, and you really build relationships across the course of the projects, right? And it's really essential because the projects are complex and because needs evolve and people evolve, right? To constantly be listening for cues and how to shift the focus, amplify our work in different areas to help meet the need of the moment, right? So I like to say that HR benefits profession on paper can sound very technical and boring, but in fact, it's really fascinating and interesting, and every day is a challenge, both for our clients and for our team.
It's interesting that you say that, talking about the technical aspects of it, because you kind of came into this through that technical side.
I did, yes. So it's funny, originally very non-technical, right? So my background includes that PhD in English literature that you mentioned, but that became, I guess, the teaching and writing capability that came with that became a segue into the HR benefits world. And, I took a role at what was then Towers Perrin in writing the company's implementation methodology for benefit administration. That was my initial role. And it was very much about the technology being used to administer benefit programs and the technological process, right, of configuring and setting up that technology to make it work for clients of the firm. And so that kind of became my initial entry point. And then I stayed in a technology, though benefits related role for many years, working into, product marketing and development and technology sales, right? Speaking for the technology that the firm was utilizing. And it's an industry that is very reliant upon technology to deliver services, right? So that was kind of an appropriate step in. But it was one that was very much unexpected, right? That would come from that academic background, segue into the implementation piece, and then on to technology and administration, product and sales work.
Wow. So really, you've been on the human side of technology on your way up.
It's interesting because the whole industry is, as I said, reliant on technology, but it's the human side that matters most, right? If you think about at the top describing the challenges that our clients face and the needs that their employees have, technology is just the delivery vehicle, right? And the human element is critical, particularly for clients who may opt to outsource service delivery to available providers in the market, right? They want real quality people on the other end of the phone answering questions on behalf of their employees, right? And the questions that those employees have are extremely complex at times and even urgent, right? And so that human piece really matters, which is very interesting now in the age of AI, right? Where there's a lot of talk about that human side going away. We see it evolving, but we don't see the disappearance of the need for the human element in the loop here.
I mean, I have my own opinion on this, but I'm going to toss it out to you anyway. Given that AI can provide such strong technical capability, and notwithstanding the possibility for error, right? Why doesn't it make sense for people just to rely fully on the new technology?
I think it's possible to a great extent, right? And I think, this is an area that we're all living in, individual moments of discovery every day around what AI can do, how it can support us and give us lift. But I think it's again, this field is a very technically deep field, and by technically, I mean the knowledge required of HR benefit programs, the knowledge required around legislation and regulatory requirements pertaining to those programs, right? The understanding of the history and evolution of the organizations that we serve and that the technology and provider solutions in our industry serve, right? Because those can be extremely complex. There can be merger and acquisition history that triggers certain eligibility rules or other dynamics that cause variation by population segment, right? So there's a lot of deep complexity that AI has not mastered yet, right? And you combine that or matrix it with, the urgency of someone who is standing at the doctor's office being denied coverage and needs help, right? Kind of one of the classic examples of help needed in our space. You don't necessarily get to the bottom of what's happening through automation and artificial intelligence, right? There may be some human intervention needed at a certain point in time. Or if you're taking that instance a step further and guiding that person by helping them access or select or evaluate the most appropriate next step for care, for example, there may be the requirement of a human element. And so we see AI really supplementing a lot of the work that we do and the providers in our industry do, not necessarily removing it all, maybe amplifying where the human element will best apply in the future.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the ultimate client, if you will, the patient, is humans. And I've never found an AI yet that can truly empathize, that can truly say to somebody, yeah, this is really tough. We're going to help.
I think there's that empathy and also the multi-layered complexity, right? And, it's quite possible years from now we'll get there, and AI is moving at lightning speed, right? It's been entertaining as our team experiments with using it to see how it's evolving literally daily, right? So never say never, but and I'm optimistic and I think we have embraced AI, right, as a benefit going forward. Not a human replacement, but a real benefit in amplifying the work and improving the work that humans can do.
Absolutely. So let's pull this back to your clients. And believe me, I could talk about AI and the human elements for days. You really stress that client centricity. And that, I think, to me is one thing that has always made Herronpalmer stand out from a lot of our other clients as well. What does client centricity mean to you and to Herronpalmer?
It's really focusing on the going back to those needs of the individual customer, which are unique in the case of every organization and every situation that organization faces, right? And a lot of it comes down to listening for those unique or nuanced elements in each situation. Also, properly researching and understanding what each client organization is all about and where their objectives may lie strategically, right? And then keeping all of that in mind as you simply deliver the mail, so to speak, right? Deliver what's been asked in terms of a project and solution around a problem, or identification of a solution, right? So it's putting that uniqueness into the process, the repeatable process that we might do every time we run a certain type of project, making it very specific to that client.
A combination, the complexity of both the work that they're trying to achieve, the complexity of the market, and the critical thinking that you bring to layer over the data that's just out there.
Yes, and I think we tend to think in terms of needing to be, first of all, independent and transparent in our guidance to clients, right? So really focused on what is right for each individual customer in the situation, helping them avoid, as one of our clients once said, following shiny objects around, right, or trends of the moment. And so that independence and doing what's right by the client is paramount, and transparency. And that's the piece about not following the shiny object, right? If something isn't as shiny as it seems, so to speak. Let's really dig in and understand what it is and how it compares to other options in the market. And we're known then for pairing that with expertise. And I think in this space, that's something that our clients truly value, right? They want us to understand what they understand, and ensure that we're matching solutions to that. And that has to be informed by data, not just opinion, right? But by real experience in the industry, and then data, which creates a much more reliable decision point at the end of a process, right? And so I think those are the things that we bring, that we really try to instill in that customer-centric approach.
So it's that deep understanding of the client, what's important to them, what they value. In my experience, even when our clients tell us that they're telling us everything that we need to know, it doesn't always work that well, right? They aren't necessarily as transparent as we are. How do you really get your clients to open up with you so that you do get the important information to be able to do what's right for them?
I think in every situation, there's a process of getting to know one another, right? And of course, we have some clients that we've known for many years, and have a decade or longer relationship with those clients. But I think in each situation where you're getting to know the people involved, and you're getting to know the situation and the circumstances, there's first and foremost, going back to that theme of listening, right? Listen for cues that there may be more, but also relationship building. So, and that's all about trust, right? And trust, is built by listening and playing back what the individual on the other side might be telling you, or asking you, or even saying somewhat subliminally, right? And then finding, in our case, because this is our business, a way to help with the challenge at hand, and delivering, next steps, being timely, being process oriented, so that we're not wasting someone's time, right? And making forward progress on the ask. And I think the more that we can do that reliably and repeatedly, we earn trust, right? We also try to have fun while we're working with organizations. And I think that helps in bringing out personal relationships that ultimately do lead to more trust. And sometimes information is phased in, right? So the more you build that trust, the more context you get about the complexities or political dynamics or whatever other dynamics might be involved in a situation. And then the more you can help, right? Because you know the full landscape.
I mean, it sounds tough. And you just brought up the phrase political dynamics, which probably gives everybody listening to this a little bit of a clench in their stomach, right? That's the quagmire that we fear the most sometimes. How do you accept that risk? Like, how do you lean into these situations when you don't have all of the information? How do you keep your independence and transparency when it feels like you don't know what the right way to go is?
I think you have to keep at it, right? So you don't want to guide an organization to jump to follow you if you don't know the answer, right? So, and it's incumbent upon us to be honest with our clients when we haven't quite gotten to an answer, right? And so you have to keep at it and keep digging and working alongside the client team and our own team to uncover, what it is that we need to know at the end of the day, right? And not simply get to a conclusion to get to a conclusion. But I think it's just about being honest about where you are in the moment, in the process, and continuing to forge ahead with the steps that are going to get you to the end result, eventually.
Yeah, so honest is better than easy.
Correct. Yeah. Easy is just easy.
Doesn't necessarily get to anybody's best interest. I wanted to ask you, what is it that you discovered along your own career path? And how has that led to the commitment that you have to building trust and client centricity into your work?
So it's interesting that, many of the things that make us good consultants are the things that help us build our own career path, right? So I think that I'll return again to that theme of listening and really being a sponge and absorbing, right? So as you grow in a career, you're listening for the circumstances, surrounding you in whatever business or whatever profession it is you're pursuing, and trying to really interpret accurately, play back accurately, and learn. And that is the same type of skill set that we use as we've been talking about in consulting. And so I think we find that we try to instill in our employees and really adopt a culture of openness and transparency, just as we do with our clients, right? And following through and support, right, when needed. And I think giving people the opportunity to have situations where they can listen and learn and get exposed to more content, more subject matter than they came in with, right? And that's the path that we like to see people following, and we encourage folks to, we've worked with Trusted Advisor for many years, as you said, and I think having our team members follow the guidance that Trusted Advisor provides is really meshed well with our culture. And even our most senior folks, right, value what they learn through the program, because it's a matter of kind of opening up your mind to what you may not be hearing at first, right, and building those deeper relationships. And so that's why it's been a good fit for us. And generally, I think our folks are also very collaborative and help each other with some of that cross-pollination and learning.
The words that come to me when I'm listening to you are curiosity and humility.
Humility is and curiosity. I think if you how to put it, if you are not open to learning the net new, right, you stagnate. And I think there is a parallel to that. I think when we talked earlier, I shared a parallel to academia, right, where the kind of the old adage was you earn tenure and then perhaps can relax a bit. And doesn't happen in every case, right, but might happen. And you're not as open to learning the net new, but you're still focused on the core expertise that you came in with. And in our industry in particular, there's always net new technology solutions, not just AI, right, but new legislation, new dynamics for every customer as their business evolves, right? So really being open, and even net new solutions, not simply technologically, but in terms of plan design or policy design, right? So having to be open and curious is a key piece. And then humility, certainly, because to your point earlier, how do you talk to a client when you don't know all the answers, right? I think people can see through consultants who pretend to have all the answers before they know them, right? So you have to be humble yet confident and have a process that you follow that, again, will get you to that answer in order to be believable.
Yeah, I love that. And there's something that's kind of twirling in my head a little bit as you're talking about this, and it has to do with adaptability, right? And you've mentioned a number of times that the market changes, your industry changes, and it can change pretty radically. You started there as technology was really coming into the benefits market, and now it's the standard. How do you see adaptability connecting with that idea of trust?
It's adaptability on a number of levels, right? You, as a consultant, you need to go after the change, understand what is changing in the industry in the moment, and then do the research, do the homework, have discussions with relevant entities, whether it's technology platform providers or service providers, customers themselves, to have an understanding of that evolution and change and map out the landscape so that when a client asks for your help, you've got it down. And even if you're learning along with, you're learning several steps ahead, right, and can inform. So needing to be aware of what's changing, jump on it, learn about it, be able to distill it as information that can help our clients in project situations. That's key. And then also we need to be adaptable in that change may change the way we do our work from time to time. It may require, and I'm not just alluding to AI, although that's a big part of that, right? But looking at hot topics in the industry in the moment, right? Whether it, float in retirement plan administration, or whether it's same day pay, on the payroll side, that may make us need to do deeper dives, right? It may make us need not just to learn the content and learn the approach to evaluating around the issue, but, building out new intellectual property within our own processes, or, training our people differently. So you just have to be prepared to build room into that for each cycle, each year, because it's going to happen.
Right. I mean, it's a lot to ask somebody to keep that all kind of in their head as their foundation, to be an expert on the market, an expert on the industry, an expert on the client, and at the same time, be curious and present in the conversation.
It is a lot. It's intimidating, right? And, we really make an effort to hire folks who fit that culture and who understand those needs of curiosity, humility, adaptability, as well as all of the other, elements that we've been discussing. And we hire top talent, right? We really, we put folks through the paces, and make sure that we're hiring people who have strong backgrounds and will serve our clients well. But upon coming in and facing all of that complexity, sometimes there can be this sort of imposter syndrome. Do I really know enough to do this, right? And that's where sort of the team comes in, right? And the collegiality that we try to build internally, because, we help each other and help kind of instill the confidence that each individual had in coming in, and hone it to the adaptability needed around all of this complexity. So I think we do very well in being good colleagues to one another and lending expertise or guidance on an approach, or whatever the case may be, to support one another until you kind of get to that feeling of, oh yeah, I can do this. Because entering this world and being hit by all those factors you mentioned, which was really observant, it's intimidating.
I can imagine. And as we've discussed, I've met a lot of your team members. I can attest that they are top class. Absolutely. Are you comfortable sharing in a little more detail? What is it that you've done to really bake this into the culture at Herronpalmer?
Well, we have, and, I'll speak of our founding partner, Tony Herron, as well, who is still part of the team, and we gave this a lot of thought together. The reason for reaching out for help from Trusted Advisor was in part to take some of the skills we knew we had, but really hone those skills, right, and make them more consciously identifiable, and shape them very consciously as well in the team. And we've also, I think, we have a lot of rigor around keeping in touch with team members. So it's not just go off on an assignment and disappear. It's a lot of kind of institutional rigor around team meetings of different types that will give that sort of help and structure to each team member, and those meetings create forums where folks can ask questions and get guidance from more experienced individuals, or even if they are experienced themselves, get perspective and different ideas, maybe, right, that we can bounce off one another in order to get to the best possible solution for our customers. So, and that's all about trust, right? If you're opening up and asking a question in a forum of peers, it means that you're a little bit vulnerable because you may not know the answer. So getting assistance and support is, the first step is trusting the folks that you're asking to provide that support. So, it's both formal training, as we've done with your team, but also informal, just reinforcement every day.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges for a lot of people is making that leap beyond technical expertise. And when I say technical, I don't mean technology, but beyond always having the answers, being the smartest person in the room, having the solution for your client, all very well intentioned, right? That's what they're asking us to do. That's what they're paying us for. And to then be able to, again, at the same time, be open to, this is what I think is right, but there might be a different perspective that I haven't seen yet. And so that openness.
Yes, yeah, you have to be open to that. You have to, I mean, it's and hopefully this is one of the practices that we've instilled, right? Constantly be doing a gut check or constantly be asking for feedback and different perspectives before you finalize a report, before you take a client with you to that ultimate decision that they're about to make. Work on getting those different perspectives factored in because there might be a doorway you haven't considered yet, right?
I bet there are a lot of people hearing this thinking, wow, wouldn't it be nice if I could just relax a little bit, not always have to be right, not always have to have the answer, right? There's something very freeing about that.
There is. I think at the same time, I think that we go into our work not planning to dictate an answer, right? And again, each situation is so unique. The answer isn't necessarily predictable. Most of the time, it's not predictable at the start, right? So there is some freedom in knowing that you have the right expertise, the right tool set, the right support network to, continue down the path of a project and learn what you need to learn around the client situation, the market landscape, to the extent something new pops up right along the way, and then pull that all together into a conclusion that is in the best interest of the client and their employees at the end of the process. So it's not kind of bursting on the scene with a message or, the answer. It's kind of a mutual discovery process, right? And we literally use that term in our work. So it's a little bit different than having to always be the smartest person in the room.
It's a lot different. And it sounds like the process by which you get to the right answer is almost as important as getting the right answer.
Yes. I mean, you want a very rigorous and diligent process. You want a process that evaluates all the angles, right? Instead of coming to foregone conclusions or accelerating to an answer just because of time or budget constraints, right? So, but at the same time being a process that allows you to make the best use of your client's time as well, right? That is very efficient, methodical, predictable along the way.
Absolutely. And I love this because it really kind of ties back into your comment earlier that those things that build trust, the curiosity, the humility, the adaptability, the vulnerability, are the same things that enable good consultants.
Certainly, yes. It takes me back to my academic days, before being in this world, where to be a good teacher and to help students learn, you had to be comfortable with silence when you asked a question, with open-ended questions that would generate thought, right? There are moments of discomfort that, can generate the best results in the end, right? If you give people room to think and to provide a thoughtful perspective and answer. If you ask questions of, be it the customer or one of the providers competing in an evaluation process, right, where you give them that opening, that's where you get the best results.
I love that. There's so much about just letting them be them and giving them this space to move at their own pace within the guidelines of the processes.
Yes, yes. Although within those guidelines, right? It's a balance because you don't want the cliche is analysis paralysis, right? You want to be always making forward progress for that customer.
So this has been really great so far. And I love the arc of how this conversation has gone, talking about the importance of client centricity, that these kind of soft skills, as we called them back in my MBA, really are the hard skills when it comes to doing what's right for the client, and how you've built that in, kind of baked it into the culture at Herronpalmer. I want to ask you something, just a little bit of a curveball. As you think back on your career, both personally and building the business at Herronpalmer, what's one thing that people tend to get wrong about trust?
That's a really interesting question. I think there is perhaps a misperception that trust exists until you break it. Right. And in reality, it doesn't exist yet at the start in many situations. You have to build it. So you can't come out of the gate assuming everybody's on board and you've got a vote of confidence, right? You have to build and earn it quickly, right? But it's not there to be taken for granted.
I love it. Great wisdom. Kathleen, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate your time and your wisdom and sharing it with our audience.
It was a pleasure, Noelle. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.